Alrighty, so before I call it a night, because it is starting to get late in the night, and I do have to go to work at 4:30 in the morning. And by the way, at the time of this recording, it is 9:01, so I expect that I'm not going to get enough sleep tomorrow to work for my first day of the week of what would be another full week of 40-hour shift. But it's okay, because, I'm definitely want to get you guys as many MLS content as possible, especially with the way that I haven't done an MLS video in the past couple of days. So, in terms of what has happened in this past week, well, a lot has happened in this past week. In fact, the primary transfer window, which is something that I didn't know that it actually closed this week, because, throughout this week there's been so much hype in terms of that CONCACAF Champions League final game between the Sounders and Pumas in the second leg, that we almost forgot that the primary transfer window actually closed this week, and that there were definitely a lot of deals that happened on deadline day or the previous day before deadline day happened. And we start off with RSL reacquiring Jefferson Savarino, but only this time they have made him a designated player, because I think the last time when they had Jefferson Savarino, they didn't make him as a DP. But this time it is going to be the case, and they're going to be paying up to $2 million and about 500,000 incentive to Atletico Mineiro in order to get him. But overall, I think this is a good signing for RSL. I mean, I know how Savarino was certainly a very important attacking player for this RSL team, and that, knowing the fact that this is a team that also needs some attack on, Savarino is definitely a guy to do so. I mean, he's probably going to definitely hope that he can keep up the same good attacking performance that he had in his first stint with RSL. Now the fact that he is labeled a DP player, but I think this is also so clearly an example of RSL knowing that, what, that guy that we sold him off to Brazil, and he turns out to be very decent for us on the attack. Yeah, let's bring him back, because we need to continue to improve our attack, which, this season, the attack for RSL, there's been times that they've been good, and there's been times where they have been bad, and that you can clearly see that they at least in these last couple of games, when the goals start to kind of dry up a little bit, they need some attacking threat, and Savarino is definitely a guy to do so. Now, speaking of attacking threat, and speaking of a team that are really struggling to score goals, is the Chicago Fire, and it's no surprise that they decided to sign an attacking player before the primary transfer window closed, as they have acquired Chris Mueller from Orlando City for up to 650,000 GAM and a 2023 first round pick. Although originally the 650,000 K GAM, I think half of them is them paying Orlando City, and half of the remain is performance incentive. And this is kind of an interesting move, knowing the fact that the Fire was thinking about drafting Mueller a couple of years ago, but they decided to pass on him, and that now it seems like they of course got Chris Mueller, even though they passed on him a couple years ago. And it's safe to say that Mueller, his move with Hibernian has not worked out, and that it's, I'm pretty sure for him it kind of sucks the fact that his European venture didn't quite work out. And again, as much as I talk about a lot of these MLS players, especially these young MLS players moving to Europe and get a big money move and kind of had a dream move to play in Europe, it doesn't mean that it always will work out. In fact, we've seen more times or not where players go to Europe and it doesn't really quite work out for them, so they decide to come back to MLS. And in this case, it seems like that is the case for Mueller, who I've heard that he's having a lot of trouble in terms of adjusting life in Scotland, and certainly adjusting playing for a new team. And that, of course, would happen. I mean, when you're a player going to a country that you don't know, and going to a league that you don't know, and completely different to the style of MLS, you're going to struggle and definitely be out of your comfort zone, and it might be too much where you probably might think about moving back to MLS. And I guess this is also a good example of, now you probably know what a lot of these foreign South American players feel like when they do come into the league, where I know as much as some people bash on them in terms of the fact that they don't turn out very well, you got to remember they're coming to a new country that they have never been before, and there's that pressure in terms of them have to perform for their team. And again, I don't know if that's going to be the same case when Mueller did go to Hibernian, and that there was that pressure of him have to perform it with that club. And again, it just doesn't seem like it works out. And now he's coming back to MLS, and that let's just hope that maybe he can rediscover that good form that he had with Orlando City, because the whole reason why he eventually did get that European move is that he was definitely electric for Orlando City, and there was even talks the fact that he definitely could be in national team discussion, especially him being on the national team a couple of times. Now, moving on, in terms of the next signing, is a signing that, or a trade that I definitely did not expect. The Galaxy decided to acquire Chase Gasper in exchange for up to 750,000 KM to Minnesota United. And the reason why I say I did not expect this is that, a couple of weeks ago, Chase Gasper, it seems like he was happy to get back to play for the Loons, and that especially even kind of jokingly said that after he get his first yellow card against Fort Madison, is that seems like he's definitely back to his best in terms of picking up yellow cards and being such a lockdown defender for this Loons team. And to my biggest surprise, a couple of weeks after he said that, or at least he tweeted that on his Twitter account, he's now traded to the LA Galaxy. Now, again, I'm not sure if this has something to do with the fact that when he entered the SABH program for MLS, you just feel like from what he also heard that he was dealing with a lot of mental issue, and that him going to the Galaxy and knowing the fact that he used to play for UCLA, and it seems like his family is from there. Maybe this, of course, will help him. And we've seen before where some players, they might have trouble mentally, or they're maybe homesick in terms of playing in a team that is not based in their hometown. That of course will happen, and that maybe the other team wants to move closer to where their family is, and that seems like this might be the case for Chase Gasper. And again, I wish him the best, and that it is definitely a bit of a loss, especially to the fans, because I think Chase Gasper is considered one of the fan favorite for this Minnesota United team, and that again, this is not the first time we've seen this happen, where the Loons front office decided to trade away a player to an LA team, despite the fact that the fans are kind of devastated in terms of that. But I think this one, of course, does make some sense with the way that Kamar Lawrence clearly is a guy that I think is an upgrade to Chase Gasper, and that I feel like he basically earned that spot over Chase Gasper, and that I think Gasper he would be good for some depth, and I think that maybe is something that I am a little concerned from this Loons team now that we do lost a bit of a depth piece in Chase Gasper. But overall, getting $750,000, which I feel like that's a little bit of an overpay from the Galaxy, but still, I'll be happy to get that much amount for a guy that I feel like he's just going to be more of a bench player, and pretty much now drop to being kind of a bench player behind Kamar Lawrence in that spot. Now, speaking of a bench player, Inter Miami decided to sign Indiana Vassilev on a permanent deal, and I think this is a good sign with the way that Vassilev is definitely a good utility player for Inter Miami, and there was definitely whispered that it seems like he is going to be signing a permanent deal with Inter Miami after spending time on loan from Stoke City, and this basically confirms it that he is going to be indeed staying with Inter Miami. Now, the Vancouver Whitecaps signed free agent Luis Martins, and this is kind of a strange one because Martins, he hasn't had the best time with Sporting KC. In fact, a lot of SKC fans have talked about the frustration with Luis Martins with the team, and he has not improved the defense whatsoever. And that the Whitecaps, knowing the fact that they're desperate in terms of trying to find anybody that can help their defense that has been just an absolute mess in the beginning of the season. I'm not sure if Luis Martins is going to help the case, though I think most likely he's going to be playing as a wingback, knowing the fact that Sartini's like to play free at the back for the Whitecaps, so maybe playing the wingback position might fit Luis Martins, because I don't recall there's times where Peter Vermees used him as a wingback during his time with Sporting KC, but it's kind of a strange one that the Whitecaps, desperately need some defensive help. They decided to get a guy that isn't really going to help them solve the issue, or at least in my opinion, don't really is going to be the guy that solved the big problem that this team has. And believe me, they have a lot of problem, and and rightfully so, why they're now dead last in the league. But again, I think this is kind of an interesting signing, but we'll see how this of course will work out. Now, Orlando City have acquired Jake Marini in exchange for up to 275,000 GAM to Atlanta United, and again, I think this is more for a depth piece rather than the Chris Mueller replacement. I mean, they've already had the Chris Mueller replacement a long time ago, knowing the fact that when he decided to join Hibernian, and even though it was only on a loan, it seems like that is going to be a case where it seems like Orlando City was hoping Hibernian will trigger the option to buy clause, and they can get a bit of some money out of that, which I think, going back to the Chris Mueller signing from the Chicago Fire, I think maybe Orlando City fans are a little bit disappointing that they didn't get a lot of sum out of that. I mean, 650,000 KGM and a first round draft pick is good, but they want to of course make much more than what they did out of this, considering, as I said, Mueller was a guy that it seems like that was one of Orlando City biggest asset, alongside with Daryl DK, that they can sell off to Europe for a big amount of money. But again, with them getting Jake Marini, I'm pretty sure this is just one way for Orlando fans to troll Atlanta, saying that, yeah, we're going to take one of your player, even though he's just kind of a utility player. And again, I think he's definitely going to be good in terms of using depth on that attack, because Marini could be a guy that could do well. He hasn't really performed well for Atlanta United, but I think coming off the bench, maybe he'll of course do well, and that seems like it is going to be the case here. Now, Charlotte FC have acquired Andre Shinseki for up to 400,000 GAM and 50% sell-on fee. Now, this is an interesting one because I know Charlotte is a team that desperately need attacking help, but the striker position isn't one of those area that they desperately need help, because I still think Karol Świdecki is their main number 9, and he has shown this season that he has that brilliance and could be a proven goal scorer in that number 9 position. Unless, if I'm thinking Charlotte might put Shinseki in the wing, which I think the Rapids have tried to do that a couple of times, and that I don't think Shinseki tends to like that, because he tends to want to play as a pure 9, and that it's no surprise eventually he kind of fell down the pecking order of Robin Fraser's Rapids team. So yeah, this is kind of interesting. The fact that it's going to be interesting what Miguel Angel Ramirez is going to do. Is Shinseki just going to be a backup? Because I'm pretty sure Shinseki didn't go to Charlotte just to be a backup. He went to Charlotte thinking that he needs a change of scenery so he can get more minutes. And again, I don't think he's going to do so because of the fact that Świdecki is there, or unless if Miguel Angel Ramirez decides to play two up front, which if that's the case, then maybe this signing does make sense with Shinseki being that second striker alongside with Świdecki. But we'll see whether or not if this, of course, will work out, because I remember when Shinseki came into the league, he definitely looked like a guy that was one of those rare draft pick that comes out of college that actually works out well. I mean, he was banging goals early in his rookie year. Not so much in his second year for the Colorado Rapids, but let's see if he can rediscover that form now that he is going to go to Charlotte. Now, the Portland Timbers have signed Brazilian forward Nathan Forgoka. I think that's how you say it. And this is a clear example of the Timbers being super desperate in terms of finding a goal scorer. I mean, this team, I talk about teams that have struggled to score goals. The Timbers, believe it or not only is it another team that struggled to score goals, but really surprisingly, the team that struggled to score goals. I mean, this team, for the past couple of years, under Giovanni Savarese, is a team that has no problem in terms of scoring goals, and now seems like they're kind of in a little bit of goal drought, and that it seems like the front office realized that is the case. That's why they decided to kind of sign a player, though this is a player that is not a player that comes out of Brazil, but more like from their T2 side. So I guess in some way, he's more going to be just a depth player, because again, I don't know if he's going to be the answer in terms of solving that number 9 position, because it seems like the Timbers right now, I mean, it seems like they are running out of ideas in terms of who's going to be playing that number 9 position. I mean, they tried Nish Goda, and he's been struggling so much. They tried Larea in the last game. He didn't do so well. And then I think Felipe Mora is still injured right now. So again, they're just so desperate right now in terms of finding that number 9, and that maybe Nathan Forgoka, a guy that is coming out of the T2 team. He may be the guy that will be leading the line. Oh, let's also not to forget to mention about Darren Asprilla, who after I think he did score one goal this season. It seems like he's going back to that form, or at least the MLS gods are basically saying that now he's not allowed to score goals after that incredible year that he has. But I guess maybe Nathan Forgega could be the next Darren Asprilla, because like Asprilla, he of course came out from T2, and that maybe Forgega could be the same guy to follow that suit. But again, you can see this is clearly a sign that the Timbers are super desperate in terms of finding a number 9 that can score goals. Now, Thomas Roberts is going to be returning to FC Dallas after a failed loan spell at SK Austria Klingenfurt, and I think this is also another example, just like Chris Mueller, a guy that decided to go to Europe at a young age and hope that it works out. It didn't. So now he's going to be coming back to familiar territory, back to the U.S. and back to Dallas. Though he's become one of the few players that we talk about the Dallas Academy, which Thomas Roberts, of course, coming out of that. And when they do ship off to Europe, they tend to have a lot of success, and that they tends to don't just come back to MLS so soon, even if they're not doing well in Europe. But in this case, it seems like maybe things really went bad for Thomas Roberts during his time with Austria Klingenfurt, and that he decided to come back to Dallas, and let's see if he can rediscover himself to be a decent player. I mean, there's nothing wrong for a player that go to Europe and it didn't quite work out. I mean, that maybe is just a point where maybe they're not ready yet to decide to go back to Europe. Maybe they need to come back to MLS to develop more before maybe they can make that second attempt. And I will kind of say the same thing about Chris Mueller. I mean, I don't think Chris Mueller, his dream for a European move is over. I think him coming back to MLS and now with the Chicago Fire, maybe he'll be extra motivated to once again do well, where some European team can once again be on the lookout of potentially acquire him, and that he can once again get his dream of playing for a European team again later in his career. And again, that goes the same for Thomas Roberts in the future. Now, Orlando City have signed Gaston Gonzalez from Club Atlético Union down in Argentina, or is it Club Atlético Union? That's how you properly pronounce the name of the club down in the Argentine Premier Division. But this is kind of an interesting one, because Orlando City is not going to have him, at least for this season. This is actually one of the rare cases where an MLS team decided to sign a player, and that player is still recovering from a season-ending injury. As in the case of Gaston Gonzalez, he is still recovering from a torn ACL injury, and at least he won't be available until next year. So yeah, it's kind of interesting that Orlando City signed him. I guess maybe this is just putting more pressure on their number 9, and especially a certain guy called Aaron Cara, who hasn't really lived up to the hype in terms of Orlando City acquiring him and him being the next Daryl DK in that team, and that maybe this will put him some more pressure that he's going to perform for Orlando City this season, because they've just signed a number 9 that if he doesn't perform for Orlando City, he could potentially be out of the door by the end of the season, and Gaston Gonzalez will step in terms of the number 9 position. But again, it's kind of weird for a team that decided to sign a guy that is not even going to be playing this season. But I guess this is maybe just Orlando City kind of sending the message to their attack, and especially sending their message to their striker that you better perform, or else he's going to step in and take your position. Now, speaking of torn ACL, unfortunately, you know how earlier I talked about how Apollon looked like he has suffered an injury that has the word known as ACL? Yeah, it seemed like the worst did come, as Brian Schmetzer basically confirmed that he's done for the season with a torn ACL. And I guess this is maybe a classic example of the fact that when you make history, there's going to always be a price to pay, and that this, of course, is the price to pay, and that it's definitely a big loss for the Sounders, because we know how important Apollon is for that Sounders team, especially in that midfield, where I really think he is considered the best defensive midfielder and probably the best number 6 in this league right now. Now, that being said, this is a huge opportunity for Omar Vargas to step in, and that I mentioned before, this kid, I am definitely going to keep more eye on him now. The fact that, I already kept an eye on Omar Vargas the next best thing, but I am now really keeping an eye on because it's hard to believe not a lot of 16-year-old can get like regular starting minutes in MLS. I mean, I know recently MLS has pushing the agenda to trying to give a lot of young guys a chance, or at least a lot of MLS team are trying to do so. But this is a chance for Omar Vargas, who has really looked well for the Sounders, and consider he's still only 16-year-old and he has a lot of raw ability. I mean, I can't imagine how he's going to look in these next couple of years. I mean, if he can continue to perform at a rate that what we've seen so far in his early days with the Sounders, boy, this guy is definitely not only going to be the replacement for João Paulo eventually, if the Sounders decide to move on from João Paulo, but a guy that they can definitely get serious amount of money, and maybe could be a future U.S. men's national team player. I mean, I know he's only 16, but in these next couple of years leading up to that 2026 World Cup, don't be surprised we might be saying Omar Vargas might be an absolute unit in that midfield, or maybe even trying to challenge Tyler Adams in terms of that number 6 spots for the U.S. men's national team. Now, speaking of the Seattle Sounders, and I talked about them winning the first winning the first ever CONCACAF Champions League title and becoming the first MLS team to do so. And you know how I've also said, well, I kind of didn't say this, but you know how the consequences of the Seattle Sounders being the first team to win CCL, and that, yeah, that their fan base have already been very obnoxious and insufferable. Yeah, it's now going to be even more insufferable, and it seems like they're taking it to another level now, where they decide to not only raise the CCL banner in an MLS game, but they're going to rub it in against their hated rival. And you know how I also said in that review that unless you're a Timbers fan, you definitely were not on the side of the Sounders and just join as a unity of seeing an MLS team winning CCL. I mean, maybe some Timbers fans were like that, or some Timbers fan that has MLS pride that had to join the enemy for one night as part of the unity of every MLS team wishing the Sounders to make history, which, as I said, they did. But I'm pretty sure majority of the Timbers fans did not want that, and now it's going to mean that they're going to have to see their hated rival raising the CCL banner on July 9th in that Cascadia derby. I mean, in some way, this is perfect. I mean, this is the perfect way to do it, not only to just show off to the rest of the league and once again become insufferable and have that bragging rights of being the first team to conquer the CCL mountain, but to do it against your hated rival. I mean, that just adds an extra level of saltiness that you just give to the opposition because of this moment. But now moving on, in terms of talking about Player of the Week, Kamal Miller, of course, winning the Player of the Week award, and become one of the rare defenders to win Player of the Week, because usually the Player of the Week tends to only be players that is in the attacking formation. But Kamal Miller, one of the rare defenders to win it, and rightfully so. I mean, he scored a goal and get an assist, and he play a huge part in that win that Montreal, of course, had this weekend. And yeah, it's no surprise that he, of course, won Player of the Week. And it also helped the fact that nobody scored a hat trick. I mean, anytime when a player score a hat trick, it's kind of hard for a defender, even if they did do well on the attacking front, which is not something they're asked to do. It did well too, but again, because nobody won or nobody scored a hat trick this last week, and we saw a defender doing a rare duty of being an attacking threat and contribute in terms of the goal scoring alongside with being a shutdown defender. It's no surprise that Miller, of course, won those awards because he basically did both of that. Now, Sebastian Giroussi, win Player of the Month for April, and this should not be a surprise too, because Giroussi has really started to become an early MVP candidate in this season, and really one of the main catalysts of why Austin is second in the Western Conference. I mean, I said it last year. This is a guy that, when Austin signed it as a DP, I feel like, at least in the early part, this guy is going to do well in MLS. Now, did I expect him to be kind of MVP level? Maybe not, but he's definitely proving that. I mean, he's been an electric number 10, and a player that I think this was what they expected from Thomas Pochettino. Remember when Austin decided to get Thomas Pochettino and everybody was comparing him to Diego Valeri, and that, you know, I feel like now with Giroud being so good for Austin, maybe we're not going to see Pochettino back in that team, even though he's right now on loan down in Argentina. But yeah, I mean, it feels like Austin might have finally found their number 10, and it only took them one summer to do so. And that again, this is a guy that, I mean, I knew he was good, but I did not expect him to be this good as he has just had an incredible start to his second season and his first full season with his new team. Now, finally, in terms of last news in this news of the week, we got NYCFC announcing that they will host Campeones Cup in September at Yankee Stadium, which I think this was probably one of the most interesting kind of announcement, and that a lot of fans are kind of also very interested to see, you know, not only NYCFC playing in the Campeones Cup, but where in the world are they going to host it? Because it seemed like this season they are basically known as NYCFC Wanderers, and just basically decide to play as much games at different stadium and act as a home game at it. And it seemed like at the end, Yankee Stadium is the place to do so, though again, subject to change, because even though the Yankees are not playing on the date that NYCFC is playing the Campeones Cup, you know, there's always a chance that rainouts could happen in the New York area, especially in the summer, and there could be a case that there could be a makeup game that could happen during the day when NYCFC hosts Campeones Cup at Yankee Stadium. But other than that, I think maybe NYCFC fans is happy the fact that it's been playing at Yankee Stadium, because all jokes aside, you know, as bad as Yankee Stadium it is, and as bad as we have heard a lot of the jokes about Yankee Stadium, it is really kind of still the true home for NYCFC right now, and it's a stadium that they pretty much play since their existence in the league in 2015, and I think it's only fitting for them to do so. And also, some of these games that is at Yankee Stadium are probably the most attended, because literally, I'm pretty sure most NYCFC fans will say that, yeah, Yankee Stadium is basically supposed to be their home stadium, and not like Red Bull Arena, or in some case City Field, or even moving up to another state up into Hartford to play a home game. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these news? And as always, if there's any news I didn't mention here on the board, let me know in the comments below. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button. And yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.